Okay, Reece, I think we are live. So welcome everyone to our live session. So for anyone who hasn't met me yet, my name is Nabila Chowdhury. I am a pharmacist working at Babylon Health, and I'll let Reece introduce himself.
So my name is Reece. I'm a pharmacist, qualified for 4 years, and I've currently got my own apps in the digital space, and we're both here to talk about why we want to be on the RPS board.
Thank you, Reece. Yeah, so we just thought we'd take some time out tonight to just talk to you about the reasons that we're members of the RPS, and then also why we're standing for election as well. So there's a lot of candidates. So we're standing for the English Pharmacy Board, and there are 26 candidates, 26 great candidates, and we are two of them. And we just wanted to kind of share our vision about what we see, what contribution we'd be able to make if we were successful in that domain. So I'll start first, if that's okay, Reece. So I've been an RPS member since I qualified. So I qualified as a pharmacist in something like 2005, and I have been an RPS member ever since. I've had continuous membership with the RPS. I truly believe that we need organisations like the RPS to provide us with a voice. So we need organisations like the RPS to help combine our voice and make us more powerful as a profession. And I think the RPS does that incredibly well. I think we'd do much better if we had higher membership levels and higher engagement with our members. But definitely the RPS does that incredibly well. And I think that we wouldn't have a voice without organisations like the RPS. And one of the reasons that I wanted to stand for the board elections was to help increase diversity on the board. So I come from a very unique background, and I'll just give you a quick overview of my background for anyone who doesn't know me or hasn't kind of followed me on any of the social media. So I work for an organisation called Babylon Health. We're a digital organisation, so a digital company. We started around 7 years ago, and I started with Babylon around 5 years ago as the first pharmacist at Babylon Health, with around 50 employees. I now work, I still work for the organisation 5 years later, and we now have around 3,000 employees and somewhere between 50 and 60 pharmacists working for us. We're all independent prescribers, and we all provide long-term condition management, so things like asthma, mental health, depression, anxiety. We provide that care for our patients. And anyone actually who follows me on LinkedIn, I shared a really great story about one of our pharmacists caring for our patients yesterday. And that's the kind of stuff the guys do day in, day out. So I wanted to be able to bring that expertise to the board, but I also wanted to help understand the pressures and challenges in other sectors of pharmacy and share learning. So I think it's really powerful to be able to come up with ideas and be creative when you have a diverse group of people. And that's the main reason that I wanted to stand for the board.
Yeah.
I will let you kind of share your reason as well, Reece.
Of course, and just before I share my reasons, it is a live session, so please do comment. Please add your feedback below. We're here to answer questions and be as open as possible, because that's what we think the board should be about. And I loved your idea of togetherness, because that's actually one of the reasons I joined as well. As a student at university and at UCL, I actually joined for the MEP, for the letters after my name, and the standard reasons a student may join the RPS. But as I grew through my profession and grew older, I actually realized that pharmacy is a really diverse profession. There are so many branches to it. There's digital pharmacy, community pharmacy, hospital. You can be diverse and do different roles in consulting within that. And it can come across really fragmented, but actually it's not, because under the RPS umbrella and with one organization championing the overall goal of pharmacies, we can achieve so much more together. Because at the end of the day, we can all succeed together. And I think that's what the RPS should be about. It's getting a diverse member base, as you said, and working together for the best of everyone and for the best of the community. And a bit of background on myself, I actually started working as a pharmacy and community about 4 years ago. And straight after qualifying, I started in community pharmacy and moved my way into digital pharmacy, where I've got an app and a few companies that overlap in community and digital. So I've got a really good experience and background in that. But we actually started working together back then. And one thing I really do want to say is that when we were working together, you really helped build that foundation, empowered me to start up a lot of what I had today. And a lot of the foundations we have was driven by you. And that's what I think the RPS can bring. And you definitely will bring to the RPS, that empowerment and mentorship, and to really help drive other professionals. I'm sure if you spoke to any of the team at Babylon, they would really show how Nabila has driven that team forward and empowered everyone else, encouraged everyone else.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, we've known each other for a couple of years now, and yeah, definitely your kind of entrepreneurship really struck me when we first met. You were obviously incredibly determined, and I definitely think you'll bring those qualities to the board if you're elected. So most definitely. Okay, brilliant. So it doesn't look like we've got any comments yet, but we wanted to kind of talk about digital pharmacists, didn't we, and kind of innovation in pharmacy. Yeah. I'm happy to start if you'd like. So we just wanted to kind of share our vision about where we see pharmacy in kind of 5-10 years time. So I'm obviously very driven towards technology and kind of the digital arena. I mean, we were probably one of the first kind of group of pharmacists that started consulting digitally. So we did that maybe 3 or 4 years ago now. And I see no reason why that shouldn't be the norm in every kind of every GP practice, not just actually in primary care, but in every sector of pharmacy. There should be no reason why actually pharmacists shouldn't connect to their patients via video and telephone for any reason, really. So that's definitely something that I would like to see quite high on my agenda, on the agenda in the pharmacy in the future. I think the other thing that I'd really love to see is things like automation. So I'd really love to see far more automation, especially in community pharmacy, actually. So I hear a lot of community pharmacists kind of express frustration and concern about their workload and safety. And I think things like automation will really help to drive patient safety, efficiencies, and help free up pharmacists to be able to provide the care and use the expertise that they trained for at university. So I definitely like to see more of that in all sectors as well. So definitely a place for that in both community pharmacy and secondary care. Do you have any thoughts on that, Reece?
I completely agree. And I think everything you said is about demonstrating value. Like, you guys pioneered this whole digital idea of digital pharmacy, but even today when I'm speaking to people and I'm saying pharmacists have a great role in consultation, whether it's in person in a community setting or whether it's digitally through telephone and video. There are some great examples of a small select number of pharmacists that have actually done that, pulled it off and done really, really well. But actually a lot of people start off by saying, wait, why would I see a pharmacist? I want to see a doctor. And I think that's completely a public perception of pharmacy, which the RPS can lead to change in. Because after a consultation with a pharmacist, so many patients come out and actually say, this was as good as, if not better than, being with a doctor. And that's what it's about. Pharmacists have this clinical knowledge that we can really do a lot more in. And that's where what you said about digital dispensing and automation in community pharmacy really comes in, because a lot of people look at pharmacies as, I guess, glorified shopkeepers. And I hate that term, because we really aren't. We are experts in medicine and experts in health. And the example you shared on your LinkedIn was incredible. And it's a small example of what pharmacists can really achieve in the bigger picture. And that's what I see as well, because we should have automation. We should kind of offset some of that dispensing in a feasible way to dispensers, and allowing pharmacists to really conduct consultations with patients and spend a lot of time taking that pressure off primary care and GPs and preventing secondary care admissions, because that's what we're capable of doing and more than able to do on a day-to-day basis.
No, I completely agree. I guess the way that I see it as well is it's not about us pitting ourselves and comparing ourselves with other healthcare professionals.
Yeah,
We all have different strengths and weaknesses. So definitely GP strength is to diagnose. Our
yeah,
expertise is definitely in medicines and definitely in prescribing. And there is no reason why we can't use that expertise in managing those long-term conditions that most patients have. In fact,
yeah,
all of our pharmacists do that really, really successfully. And I think it's about working together. So it comes back to that diversity kind of theme, doesn't it? Um,
yeah,
we are stronger when we're a diverse workforce. We are much, much stronger. So I look at my current organization versus some of the other organizations that I've worked in, and we work so cohesively with GPs, nurses, physios, and lots of other people. Incredibly well, and that's because we work together as one team. We recognize
yeah.
each other's strengths, we recognize each other's shortfalls, and we support each other when that happens. Yeah, it definitely comes back to diversity for me.
Yeah. And you guys can do that really well in the organization, but I think it's looking again, it's like what you can bring to the board is that knowledge of, okay, this has worked really well for us here, but let's take it out and bring it to the wider public. Let's take it into PCNs and really, we've shown value for it. Now let's take it out to the public and let pharmacists locally work together with GPs. And we spoke about technology recently where we get more access to summary care records and we can write on them and really build up those notes to take pressure off some of the GP practices and really work with them collaboratively in the best interest of patients.
Most definitely, yeah. I think the other key point that you've kind of brought up, Reece, is the fact that actually you don't always have to get things right. So, you know, I'd be lying if I said in the last kind of 5 years I got everything right at Babylon. I'd completely be lying about that.
Yeah,
It's about learning from things that don't go well, and actually sharing learnings with others so that they can support you to do better next time. And again, so I think that's a really key thing that we'd be able to kind of bring to the board, is the fact that actually both of us have probably had things that haven't quite gone to plan, but actually we've learned from it and we've moved on. It's
yeah.
kind of being tenacious and being resilient, and kind of moving forward despite not having kind of successes every single time.
Yeah. And that's it. I think like one of my things about being on the board was that entrepreneurship and that mindset of having that mentor with you, like when things don't go right, which happens all the time, like everyone makes mistakes. It's having that, because it can be quite lonely being alone, but being part of a wider organization, you have a load of other people that are in the same position as you that really just want the best for you and want to do the best for everyone else, which is where the RPS can really come in. And I think it's about the messaging as well with the RPS, because a lot of people I spoke to, and I think we both had the same issue, where when we were going for the board, I thought the hardest part of the application would be the actual application process and writing it up and pitching and the campaigning. But actually, one of the hardest points, which was really surprising, was getting 10 nominations, because out of the 30, 40 people I asked, only 10 were members. And that's what was really difficult, because the messaging behind a lot of the openness, the RPS has, obviously openness is great, but a lot of the messaging and the way it's conveyed can be done to encompass members and show what the RPS is doing a lot more to demonstrate that value to other members and non-members.
Yeah, I completely agree. So, as part of the application process, yeah, we had to ask 10 RPS members to nominate us, to stand for the board, and actually kind of reaching out to colleagues. It was quite surprising to find that actually there were some colleagues that I kind of fully thought were members of the RPS. We'd
Yeah,
never actually had a conversation about it. I'm not sure why. They weren't, unfortunately. I was fortunate enough to be able to turn a couple of people. A part of the kind of will you nominate me conversation then went on to, okay, so why do you want to be part of the RPS board? I think they saw the kind of passion and drive that I had in wanting to contribute to the board in this way, and they actually realised, hang on, well, what am I missing out on?
yeah.
And I was able to kind of persuade a couple of people to renew their membership, which was really great to see.
Yeah, and that's what we need. We need more members on the RPS to kind of reach that goal of togetherness and unity and really empower the views of the many different diverse pharmacy roles out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think this is a key point that we can learn from our other colleagues in healthcare. So people like the medics and the nurses have a really strong single voice.
Yeah,
And when I look at why their voice is so strong, they're incredibly united behind their kind of professional bodies. It's really great to see. And if anything happens in the kind of medics world or the nursing world, which members don't quite agree with, they're very quick to voice their opinion, and as a result, they're very quick to get things changed, which is a delight to see. And I'd love to
yeah,
see that in a far bigger scale with us as pharmacists, most definitely.
yeah, I agree. And I actually wrote about this in one of my articles where we looked at the junior doctor strike and how that unity really helped them. And I thought about it in pharmacy. I'm like, we haven't had that. And I kind of posted the article. And one of the feedback I got was the PSNC are there for a reason. But actually, the PSNC only look at community pharmacy. They don't look at how diverse and all the different angles you can approach pharmacy from. And that's where the RPS really has a huge role to play. I think it's been really underestimated significantly.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, that article was brilliant. Definitely read it, and completely agree with what you stated in there. And um, uh, yeah, absolutely. The PSNC is not an organization for anyone but community pharmacy. And actually, they focus on something. They just focus on payment. So they don't focus
Yeah,
on things like regulation, working conditions. That they potentially don't really have that much influence over that kind of stuff either. So yes, definitely they're a powerful body, and they do what they do well.
yeah.
However, we definitely still need organizations like the RPS.
Definitely. And I think one of the things that we touched on the other day, which I think is really, really interesting, because it's something that's close to my heart, was the independent prescribing course, because you are an independent prescriber. And I think we had a discussion a few years ago. And I think I told you that I really wanted to do it. At university, I was like, I've studied for 4 years. I've got a year of pre-reg behind me. It's 5 years of studying. I should be able to prescribe like as soon as I can. I want to do this course. And I was so eager to do it. But when I actually got out to look to do the course, it's so difficult to do because you have to find a doctor to support you. Some of my colleagues are even paying doctors to support them, which shouldn't be the case at all. And you have to prove a need in your local area. So it's not something that PSNC will empower. And no one's really taking it upon themselves to empower it. But it's such a crucial role of what pharmacist is going to be in the future that we need to stick together and say, okay, all these new pharmacists that are coming out are going to have this independent prescribing course. But what about everyone else? What about, however many thousands of pharmacists are currently out there? We're going to be left behind.
No, I completely agree with you, Reece. Yeah, we've definitely had lots of conversations about independent prescribing in the past, and yes, we are all prescribers actually at Babylon. I think it's just such a natural extension of being a pharmacist,
Yeah,
and I completely agree with you. There's nothing to stop us from being prescribers as soon as we qualify. Um, with the right support and the right training, there's nothing stopping us from doing that. And I completely understand your concerns about those of our colleagues that aren't prescribers, that may get left behind. So I think we definitely need to do something now. We need to do something differently now to be able to support all of those colleagues. So when all of our pharmacists start to qualify as prescribers, they don't get left behind, and kind of left on the shelf. We need to start taking some kind of action now, in order that they don't miss out and gain full support in trying to
yeah,
gain that qualification. We
exactly.
definitely need
And
to
it's
make it
about,
easier. Sorry.
yeah. No, and it literally all ties in together because you've got these new roles that are coming up in digital pharmacy where it's going to expand rapidly. Like you guys pioneered it at Babylon, and you really had to push and campaign it. But again, it will be the new norm going forward. So you've got a value case. Like why should existing pharmacists become independent prescribers? There's a reason for them to move into new shifts and new roles, and it's about supporting that transition across. And even in community, there's a lot that we can done where if we change the funding model, we can actually get a lot more pharmacists in community settings conducting consultations. And I think the example you shared on LinkedIn yesterday, which was, I think one of your pharmacists supported a patient with mental health, right?
Yeah, someone with a mental health crisis who needed a kind of psychiatric assessment.
Yeah, and that was such a small scale example of exactly what pharmacists can do in a clinical setting, not only in community, but in digital health. And it could even be, pharmacists conducting digital consultations, speaking to patients over the phone, or even patients walking into your local pharmacy and actually getting a consultation straight away, really quickly, because you can't replace that locality and convenience of a physical location sometimes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I completely agree. I think it's just a natural extension of the pharmacist role in whatever sector it is. There's
Yeah.
so much scope for it in secondary care, in community, obviously in pharmacists that work in GP practices. It just, I think it's definitely a great move for us to have all pharmacists qualifying as independent prescribers. But I think we definitely mustn't forget those legacy pharmacists who don't have the qualification. We need to
Yeah.
definitely do something quite urgently for them now in order to support them to get the right qualifications and skills prior to that happening, that legislation occurring in the future.
Yeah. And part of it was empowerment. It's like, really pushing and motivating that pharmacist to say, you can do this, you can get the course, this is what value you'll add to your professional career and the whole public and the general well-being of pharmacists.
Yeah, I think I find, and I think we've discussed this before as well, Reece. I
Yeah.
find that most of the pharmacists that I kind of meet or interview or kind of come across, they have such a vast knowledge of expertise and knowledge, but they really just lack the confidence, and that comes from potentially them just not being empowered in the right way, or just not being shown what they can do with
Yeah.
that knowledge and that expertise. So that would definitely be really, really good to see in the future.
Yeah. And that's it. Like sorry, we're all used to as pharmacists, getting prescriptions from GPs and clinically checking it or working off a PGD or however it is, but we're always working in collaboration with other HCPs. And the difference is working independently, being able to prescribe and consult independently and having that confidence to do so, right?
Yeah, definitely. So, I mean, obviously the guys who work for us do an amazing job, but we sometimes have to go through kind of a coaching process with them just to help empower them to um, gain the confidence to be able to make those decisions independently. And that doesn't come overnight. So that comes through a series of kind of giving feedback, providing giving compliments, telling them when they've done well, and also just providing with the support for those more complex things, so they know that actually they can just reach out and get support if there's something a bit more complex or something they just can't handle. But yeah, the guys do an amazing job, but sometimes we just have to coach them through that process. But it's definitely something we need to do on a wider scale, and I think the RPS is a great organisation for us to be able to do that with a far larger cohort of pharmacists.
Yeah, I completely agree. And they definitely have a good leader at Babylon to show them the way, I guess. So that definitely does help. But yeah, hopefully RPS members will have the same benefit.
I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, if I'm elected, then my expertise will definitely be shared, unfiltered with the board and the RPS members. And even if I'm not actually, I'm more than happy to get involved in any way, shape, or form. I think for me, I feel that we're a really under-recognised profession.
Yeah.
So it's something that's been really high on my agenda in our organization, and I've been really successful at being able to stand kind of shoulder to shoulder with other healthcare professionals in our organization, and I'd really like to be able to transfer that to a national scale, um, it's just by recognizing, and what I did, for example, and we keep coming back to this thing on LinkedIn yesterday. It was really well timed. It was, it's just about sharing good stories, but
Yeah,
by another pharmacist reading that and seeing that Adil was able to do this, they may become empowered, or may become curious about, okay, so how can I get involved in this? Mental health
yeah,
is really prevalent at the moment. We're going through a pandemic. um, there might be far more people in crisis. I'm really well placed to help these patients. How can I do this? How did Adil do this? How do other pharmacists at Babylon do this? So
yeah.
I'd really love to see far more of that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's the same reason I went for RPS board as well. I think we're so undervalued. And I think it's so frustrating sometimes to see the way that people, the perception of pharmacists sometimes, and think there's a lot more to us than that. Like, we can do a lot more. And I genuinely care about making that change. And that's one of the reasons I went for the board. And I think that we can make that change together. Because one person or two people can't do it, but a board that's going to listen and champion the voices of many will definitely be able to achieve it. And that's a digital approach. The second point was a digital approach that you kind of mentioned, where that was one story where you shared it individually on LinkedIn. But I think as part of the RPS, if we start sharing those stories a lot more to the wider profession, and we really champion those pharmacists that are doing this on a day-to-day basis, we can really work to empower the whole profession. And just by
Yeah.
taking a different approach and a more modern way of getting that message across.
Yeah, but I think also it's not just important to share that message with pharmacists, we should also be sharing it with non-pharmacists. And that's actually
Yeah,
the reason that I posted it on LinkedIn. I have a very large non-pharmacist following. Obviously, I work in digital health and tech. I really wanted to impart that actually pharmacists are more than capable of being able to achieve. To me, it's really simple. To Adil, it was really simple, but this patient was incredibly grateful for the intervention that he made. And people, kind of average people, probably just don't realize that we were able to do
yeah,
this kind of thing. So that was the key reason that I actually did that, as well as obviously congratulating Adil
of
for the
course.
great work that he's done. But he's not the only one, and I just wanted to be able to illustrate actually that there are far more pharmacists actually that do this on a kind of daily basis. It's just like
Yeah.
day-to-day work for the guys.
Yeah, and mental health is really hard to diagnose. It's really hard to look at. It's really hard to treat and refer properly. And pharmacists are a great profession because anyone can simply walk in or speak to a pharmacist pretty much a lot quicker than a lot of other professions. And they're really, really available to help with this stuff a lot more.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So community pharmacists are incredibly well placed to be able to um, assist and support with things like mental health crises. And actually, they get to know their patients on a level that maybe other people don't.
Yeah,
Just saying hi to patients, and they might be they might detect deterioration in mental health far quicker than the patient, and actually than other healthcare professionals as well. So it's
yeah.
definitely something that we should focus on in the coming year.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it's really sad to see that so many community pharmacies are closing, because actually, like the role you just highlighted is one of many things that community pharmacies have a huge role to play. And I think it's complementary, because I know a lot of people think it's against this idea of distance selling pharmacies. I think it can be really, really complementary, because some things can't be replaced online. And I think it's just a way that everything works. Not everything will always be online, but it has to be complementary. But it's about making sure that the funding is right for community pharmacies to make sure that we can ensure longevity.
Yeah, I mean, I think we just need a complete shake up and overhaul, don't we, of the funding? Like,
Yeah,
it's being squeezed and squeezed and squeezed so much. It's really sad to see some of the stories about community pharmacists who've been in business for a number of years and just are no longer able to sustain their businesses. But we just completely need an overhaul of the funding in community
yeah,
pharmacy in the future, and things like the automation will basically just help with supporting pharmacists to just, I guess, step out of the dispensary and just help
yeah,
patients or provide that care a bit more. And also empowering them and sharing stories about the kind of stuff that they can do and that other pharmacists do will also help empower them as well. But yeah, I'd love to see that happen in community, I think.
Yeah. That tech change definitely needs to happen. I'm sure when you're working, because I know you worked in community before, you must have seen patients that came in, even if just for a chat, just to say hi or just to kind of clear their head and see someone different. Like, especially elderly patients who can find it quite isolating, or over the last year where we've all been isolating, the community pharmacists have been there just for a chat and they've been available. And by taking that pressure off them when they're just not dispensing and allowing them to consult, makes a huge difference to patient care and the care they can offer the patients.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just that interaction, isn't it? That human interaction. Like, I'm sure I've read somewhere that community pharmacies are the heart of the community, and they quite often are, especially for those people who are on chronic conditions, who kind of go in regularly every month to go and pick up their prescriptions, or even just go in for a chat.
Yeah.
People build lifelong relationships through their community pharmacists, and it's just a delight to see. But I definitely like to see that
Exactly.
be taken a step further.
Yeah, and that's another reason it's so sad to see that some of these community pharmacies are closing, because people really depend on these day-to-day pharmacists and um, local heroes, I guess, to really champion them and help them feel better every day and provide vital service.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I guess going back to your point about the kind of online pharmacies, I think there's a place for everything, isn't there? So that there will be some patients who just prefer to have their prescriptions dispensed online and just have them delivered, and that's absolutely fine. We need to give patients
Yeah,
a choice, but equally there will be millions of patients who really just want to go into their community pharmacy and visit their pharmacy and have that human interaction, that human conversation. So I don't see any reason why we can't live side by side. There's a place for everyone, really.
exactly. No, I think, and they can work really, really well together. There definitely isn't competition, which shouldn't be. But I think the way the funding is set up makes it seem as if it could be. I think that's why there's a big outroar about it, and rightly so, because it's causing the closure of loads of community pharmacies. But I guess with the right support and the right member base, and really pushing and championing it, we can make that difference and put that business case forward to say actually community pharmacies should be consulting a lot more. They should be spending a lot more time with patients, have more access to deliver more to SE summary care records to deliver more patient care on demand.
Most definitely. I mean, I was actually thinking about this a couple of days ago. I was thinking about, okay, so how would I want community pharmacy to contribute to overall kind of patient care? I'd love to be able to say to a patient after a video consult, go to your community pharmacy, get your bloods done or whatever, your
Yeah,
blood pressure, whatever it is, done at your community pharmacy, and then have that pharmacist then have a conversation, maybe a health promotion conversation with the patient. Maybe we need to provide our pharmacists with health coaching skills. They're really well placed. They meet our patients on a regular basis. Maybe we need to provide them with something on health coaching in their training and their qualifications, and then be able to just make an entry on their GP practice record. Like, I would love to be able to
yeah.
see that happen in the future. That would be amazing. Such like integrated care in the future.
That's exactly what we need. Because even now, to get a blood test, you have to book an appointment at your local GP, or you may not even feel comfortable with coronavirus to go into your local GP. But actually, walking into community pharmacy for a few minutes, getting a quick blood check, having a conversation with a pharmacist is a lot easier and a lot more convenient for most people. Because you can put it off quite easily, especially when it comes to health and you feel fine. It's quite easy to put it off and say, "Oh, I feel okay. I don't need to see anyone," because it's slightly more inconvenient. But if you're walking past a pharmacy, it's so much easier to say, "Actually, you know what? Let me go in for a quick checkup." See if the pharmacist is available. So it makes patient care a lot more accessible, while obviously taking a burden off the GP practice to allow them to conduct more consultations.
Most definitely. And I think we need some kind of funding model that will help promote pharmacists to be able to do that. But actually, then we need the automation and stuff. There.
Yeah,
We need the
to free
technology
up their
there to be
time.
able to absolutely, yeah. We need to make everything far less manual for people in
Yeah,
community pharmacy, definitely. I'd love to see that happen. Most
yeah. Tech's a huge thing, and I think it's come a long way in community pharmacy. But I think that community pharmacy is slightly behind in adopting it. But I think with the right funding and the right support, it definitely can come a long way, because there's so much great stuff out there. to really help pharmacists alleviate that time pressure that they have. And something you mentioned earlier, improve patient safety, reduce the number of dispensing errors, reduce the number of issues that arise because of it. Tech can come a really long way in helping with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I mean, thinking back on my community pharmacy days, actually, that was, a key thing in the back of my mind. If I go and do an MUR or, get distracted by something else, am I going to be able to kind of check safely or dispense safely or whatever
Yeah.
it is? That was a really key issue in my mind, and I can't imagine it's changed very much since then.
Yeah, it's really similar. We've got a lot of locums that say that they're really rushed off their feet sometimes and really short-staffed and trying to really struggle to manage. And stress levels in community pharmacies are quite high because of it. And I guess pharmacies feel really liable, obviously, for the patient care, but obviously they're personally liable as well.
Most definitely, yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's kind of, I could talk about this for hours and hours, and just talk about my vision and the way that I see pharmacy. I definitely just think we're really under-recognized, and we've got so much potential. I
100%.
think, I think that if I am elected, they'll definitely be the two things that I'll be focusing on. Just getting that recognition, and not just amongst pharmacists. So definitely we need to recognise pharmacists amongst our peer group, but also we need to get pharmacists recognised outside of the pharmacist group as well. I have lots of friends that are non-pharmacists, and they're sometimes really surprised at the kind of stuff that I do on a day-to-day basis. They come to me with their ailments, and are actually really surprised when I'm able to help them.
Yeah,
and it's just because they can't get into their doctors or whatever. They just want to get some advice. But yeah,
exactly.
I'd love to be able to just get some more recognition within the general healthcare world, as opposed to just amongst pharmacists.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it's about championing power pharmacy to the wider profession, within pharmacists and again, the wider public, and change that public perception of what we're capable of doing and actually deliver that as well.
Most definitely. I think it might be worth us wrapping up now, Reece. Do you have any kind of last key things that you'd like to kind of tell anyone who is watching now or might be watching later on today?
Yeah, so again, every single candidate is amazing, and I'm sure that whoever gets elected will do an incredible job on the board because everyone seems so passionate. And just to put yourself forward is so difficult. So no matter what happens, I think it's putting yourself out there is always the hardest thing. So I'm firstly super grateful for the opportunity, and thank you for everyone that nominated me. But also, if you do vote for me, I really do want to champion community pharmacy. I do want to champion digital pharmacy, champion entrepreneurship, professional development, and really help raise awareness for the value of the RPS as well.
Thank you, Reece. I completely echo what you say. There's a whole host of really brilliant candidates who are up for election at the moment. I think for me, whoever you vote for, just vote. So I
Yeah,
think historically the kind of turnout for voting isn't great. So whatever you do, please exercise your right to vote for these elections, because you have the right to kind of elect who you see fit as part of the board. And actually, equally, yep, I think anyone who's elected will do a great job. Everyone seems incredibly passionate and incredibly driven. And yes, it is difficult to kind of put your head above the parapet and actually ask for those nominations. And again, thank you to anyone who nominated me. I know that you were one of those people, Reece, so thank you. I think for me, whatever the outcome, I just want the board to be diverse. So I really just want some diversity in the board, because that is the best way to solve problems, to come up with innovation, to have creativity, and to be able to ensure that you have the voice of as many people as possible. And please engage. So don't just stop engaging now. If you've engaged with us during the election campaign, thank you very much. But don't just stop now. please feel free to reach out. Please come and talk to us regardless of what the outcome is. I'm more than happy to kind of listen to what your concerns are, regardless of what your sector is. You don't have to be in digital or have an especially interest in digital pharmacy. I'd love to understand what your concerns, your thoughts, what your vision is for the future. It'd be really, really interesting to just continue that conversation now that we've started it.
Definitely, I completely agree. And yeah, I'm again always approachable on LinkedIn or Twitter, so whichever you want to get me on, or even email, however you want to reach me. It's about being open and having someone to talk to and someone there.
Thank you, Reece. I'm just going to do a really quick shout out, just in case anyone's watching that's a provisional pharmacist. So the results come out tomorrow. I really feel for you guys. You've had a really tough year, but you are really, really resilient. And you've shown that through what you've been through this year. No matter what the outcome is tomorrow, you know, we've already discussed it today. Sometimes through failure you learn far more, and whatever the outcome is, please feel free to reach out. There's a whole host of pharmacists out here who are willing to listen and support you on whatever your journey is, whatever the outcome is tomorrow. So just a shout out to any of you provisional regs out there.
Definitely, and good luck to everyone with results as well.
Absolutely, good luck. Anyway, I think we'll wind it down then. Thank you very much, Reece. It's been a pleasure talking to you as usual. And thank you everyone for listening today. And remember, the election's open tomorrow. Please just vote and have a lovely evening.
Thank you everyone for listening.